Unmuted.
This meeting of the City of Socorro Council is set to begin. Gentlemen, please remove your hats, and everyone, please silence all electronic equipment. No disruptive behavior or outbursts will be tolerated, and violators are subject to ejection and possible prosecution. La Junta del Concilio de la Ciudad de Socorro está por empezar. Caballeros, favor de quitarse los sombreros y todas, favor de poner en silencio todo equipo de electrónico. No se va a tolerar ningún tipo de comportamiento prejudicial o revoltoso. A quien no siga estas reglas se le sacará y puede ser infraccionado.
It is 6:02 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance led by Robert E. Rojas elementary students, and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Would Mr. Alan Beltran please step up? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Javier Beltran. Thank you very much. Brooklyn Nunez. Elian Rodriguez. Thank you very much. Item number 3, establishment of quorum.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Here.
Alejandro Garcia,
Here.
Mayor Ivy Avalos,
Here.
Rudy Cruz,
Here.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos is absent. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Mrs. Villalobos just joined the meeting, 6:05.
Ms. Villalobos, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Item number 4, proclamation, whereas the City of Socorro proclaims Saturday, November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday. Whereas the City Council of the City of Socorro, Texas celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 33.2 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.9% of American employer firms, create more than 2/3 of the net new jobs and generate 46% of private gross domestic product, as well as 54% of all U.S. sales. And whereas small business employ over 46.4% of the working population in the United States. And whereas 93% of consumers in the United States agree that small businesses contribute positively to the local community by supplying jobs, generating tax revenue. And whereas 87% of consumers in the United States agree that small businesses are critical to the overall economic health of the United States. And whereas 93% of consumers in the United States agree that it is important for people to support the small businesses that they value in their community. And whereas the City of Socorro, Texas supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Ivy Avalos, Mayor of the City of Socorro, Texas, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday, and I urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Item number 5, public comment.
Mayor, we have no speakers for public comment.
Item number 6, presentation and update from Robert Campion, President of
Mayor.
Elite Medical Transport.
Excuse me, we have Miriam Cruz for public comment.
Okay.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Ms. Navarro. I think the proclamation is great. Always a fan of helping out small businesses, especially here in Socorro, so thank you for that. I wanted to comment on a couple of things. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole meeting, so I can't speak on it later, but item number 16 and 17 was an item that was brought up in the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there's two things that I'd like to say about it. The first thing, in general, I have been asking repeatedly, and I believe Mr. Terrazas used to do this, but I believe that because it's one of the commissions that many items come to the City Council, the report or the presentation that is given, I think it's important that it shows how many people voted for it, against it, or abstained from it whenever an item comes to City Council. I think that's important. I think it's important potentially for transparency and for y'all to make a decision to see how much support or lack thereof, or split decision there was. And I will continue to ask that that be brought to City Council, again, because it is one of the commissions where items constantly come from in front of City Council. The second thing I'll mention in regards to item 16 and 17 specifically is that it's long overdue. Hopefully it's something that passes today, but hopefully it passes with an amendment. And the amendment I'm speaking of is in regards to the minimum homes that are going to be required. That would be the requirement in order for a park to be built. The number was copied from the El Paso ordinances, and there was other things that were taken from the El Paso ordinances, but there were many things that were modified to fit the city of Socorro. This is one of those things that was not modified. And so I asked City Council to dig deep a little bit, and hopefully it does pass, but hopefully it passes with an amendment or a modification to our ordinances so that the minimum requirement, instead of being 100 homes, is somewhere between, 60, 65, 70, 75. I think that would be better or the best for our city. Thank you, Ms. Navarro. Everyone have a good evening.
Thank you. Item number 6, presentation and update from Robert Campion, President of Elite Medical Transport regarding ambulance services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We do have Joseph Al-Harbi here in behalf of Mr. Robert Campion to provide you a report, an updated report.
I believe I have a slide to go with this information. Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Hi, my name is Yosef Al-Harbi, Public Information Officer for Elite Medical Transport. Rob Campion cannot attend tonight as he's at a disaster preparedness conference, but he asked me to fill in tonight, and I apologize that I will not be able to answer any questions, but I'll be more than happy to take those questions back and answer them for you promptly. Elite is very pleased to celebrate 3 years of partnership and service to the city of Socorro. We believe that we're providing the highest level of care in West Texas and living our mission of positive impact here in Socorro. During the past 3 years, we've been called to provide service 8,747 times and have transported nearly 5,000 persons in need. We continue to experience between 250 and 300 calls per month for service. Our Socorro 911 operations, in conjunction with adjacent operations, continue to meet the demand of the community in a timely manner. This slide shows the primary types of requests that we respond to. Elderly falls represents a major category. The sick persons category is a catch-all when the nature of the emergency is not clearly determined. The types of call we respond to in Socorro are well in line with what is reported nationally. The second chart shows the data of the week when service is requested. In the table below, you will find our average response time. Year 1 is 8 minutes and 21 seconds. Year 2, 8 minutes and 38 seconds. Year 3, 8 minutes and 29 seconds. Our Verizon Connect integrated cameras improve safety and accountability. We are the only service in West Texas using this type of technology. Billing Pro shields patients from out-of-pocket costs and identifies eligible government funding sources. Utilizing this tool, we can effectively improve operational stability and the ability to invest back into the services we provide. Training and outreach. We are participating in the school shooting and mass disaster training. Improving communication with stakeholders. We are committed to regularly update council on EMS activities and continue to submit detailed monthly reports. As for transport options, Elite is adding non-ambulatory transport services to improve responsiveness to patients. Some of the users of this service reside in Socorro. I'd like to share a short story about this new operation that we just started. When we began transporting non-ambulatory patients through Safe Ride, we quickly began providing service to patients all around the area, including Socorro. This service is designed to effectively transport patients safely in non-ambulatory units to a variety of facilities that meets their medical needs. Some of our patients use this service on a regular basis. Naturally, like many others, one of those patients quickly bonded with one of our full-time drivers. For a brief period of time, this patient ran into some complications getting his insurance to authorize payment. This created a devastating hurdle for him as he wasn't able to make it to his appointments. Although the patient was unable to pay out of pocket, we continued to transport the patient so that he would still be able to make it to his appointments. We're pleased to have the opportunity to positively impact our patients and the communities we serve because it's the right thing to do. Because our organization believes in a good work-life balance, supporting our providers towards success, and share the same passions and mission to provide patient care, we're able to maintain a solid, consistent team that staff 2 units ready to respond to the community at any given time 24/7. One with an EMT and a paramedic, and another with an EMT and advanced EMT. We have 12 proud, dedicated full-time providers on a rotating schedule to make this possible. collections are improving as we implement better technologies and processes. The increase in insured patients is a testament to the growth and development of the Socorro community. The Medicare increase does show an aging population. The overall improvement and reimbursement comes at a time when the cost of fuel, supplies, and operations have been tremendously increased due to inflation and other factors. Elite would like to sincerely thank the City Council and to thank the City of Socorro and City Council for entrusting us with their community. We strive to earn that trust every day and every call. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them back and respond with our President, Rob Campion.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve? Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to regular agenda. Item number 14, public hearing of an ordinance to amend Chapter 46 zoning, Article 4, district regulations by adding Division 16, general mixed-use district when required of the City of Socorro Municipal Code. It is 6:18 p.m. Public hearing is now open. As there are no speakers, public hearing is now closed at 6:18 p.m. Item number 15, second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 46 zoning, Article 4, district regulations by adding Division 16, general mixed-use district when required of the City of Socorro Municipal Code.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Carlos Gainad with Planning and Zoning Department. Happy to be here with you all tonight. The next two items are items that this City Council had asked staff to work on over the past several months. I believe that this one was requested by City Council back in May, and so we're bringing forward to you what we are calling the creation of a general mixed-use district. The next slide, please, the background slide. So essentially what happens is that what City Council had asked us to look at is a mixed-use district that would allow the combination of different, when you look at zoning, right, we know we have uses, we have parking, we have setbacks. So what Council asked us to look at is to review the possibility of a mixed-use district that would allow an applicant or a property owner to combine those things. I'm going to give you all the information in greater detail, but as part of the background information, so again, City Council requested staff to develop the ordinance. That's number one. Number two, it is formatted after the city's current ICMUD district. So if you all remember, about a couple of years ago, the City Council created the Industrial Commercial Mixed-Use District. The difference being, well, I said that it's modeled, sort of the format of the ordinance is modeled after that. What the ICMUD does is it allows someone to combine industrial and commercial. What the general mixed use does is it takes it a little bit step down, so it allows someone to combine light residential with light commercial. And you'll see that as part of the ordinance, we have stipulated that in no instance could industrial, warehousing, auto-oriented businesses be allowed as part of the GMU. Moving forward, many other cities have mixed-use districts. They provide flexibility in the development standards. Some of the language was also taken by the City of El Paso, which does have a mixed-use district. And then, as I mentioned, what this does, Mayor and Council, is it creates a new zoning district, right? So by voting on it today, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's going to be parcels of land that are going to be GMU. It just creates another zoning district similarly to the R1, the R2, C1, C2, ICMUD. We would now have the general mixed-use district. And then I did want to point out that while staff is recommending approval, we did take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission on Thursday, and their recommendation to you was to postpone the item. I think many of them had not read the ordinance and needed a little bit more time to review it. So I'm happy to pause for a minute if you want me to move forward, or if you want to just consider the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cruz?
So you just mentioned that the P&Z stated to you that they want to table this item because they didn't have time to read it?
Yes, sir. They had some questions, Mr. Cruz, but it's essentially what it came down to was, hey, Carlos, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read it. Can you bring it back in 2 weeks?
Well, the reason why I'm asking this is because it wasn't but 15 minutes ago that we passed a proclamation for Small Business Saturday because we want to promote the small business.
Yes, sir.
By shutting this down tonight or not voting on it tonight, it kind of contradicts what we're trying to accomplish. And the reason why I'm speaking very passionately about this item here is because the historic district has gained quite a bit of traction, okay?
Sure.
Whether we like it or not, there's businesses, there's commercial entities that are currently operating within residential areas as well, even though the zoning, the zoning kind of is outlined by a fine line on a map, right, that we can see with our eyes. But if you were to fly above that, you can clearly see what's been developed and is currently developing as we build on it. What this item does is it creates a set of rules, because for so long Socorro's been operating like the Wild West. Let's open up here, let's open up shop here. What this does is we're not doing anything different than what we see already within the county of El Paso. It's just something that we're trying to establish here within the city. And I did notice that there's language in here that says it's to be determined on a case by case. It shall be determined.
Correct.
Case by case.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Cruz, so if you like, I'm happy to go through the presentation. I'm not going to go verbatim on the ordinance, but I do want to highlight some of the key points of the ordinance so that for your benefit and the public's benefit, there's an understanding of what we are proposing. Yes, sir.
By all means.
So one of the things that we want to do, right, so again, not to get too technical, but essentially what zoning does is that it regulates things, right? Many times people may not like it, but zoning does regulate land use. Just because you own a piece of land does not mean that you could do whatever you want with it. Outside of the county, you can. That's not applicable in the county, but within Texas municipalities, within local governments, incorporated local governments, you do have zoning enabling act that allows municipalities to protect the welfare, health, and safety of the general public through zoning regulations. Part of what zoning also does is the reason that neighborhoods look the way they do is because there's a very specific standard that developers have to follow, right? That when we talk about the RU being 25 feet in the front and 25 feet in the back, that's not Carlos Gallinat or Ms. Rodarte or City Council dictating that. That is what the law of the City of Socorro says, that if you want to build on the R1, it has to be 25 feet. Oftentimes, the way you get away with that is by the variances, and we bring those to you on the zoning or the subdivisions, right, so that there's a little bit of leeway. But what these zoning regulations sometimes tend to do is that they become too restrictive, and they don't allow for the flexibility. One of the things that I mentioned to the Planning and Zoning Commission is that if you were starting a new city from scratch, and every single lot in your city was going to be a perfect square and it was going to be 10,000 square feet, then sure, you don't need a general mixed-use district. But that is not Socorro. Socorro has been in existence for over 300 years, and we know that there are lots where they're incongruent, they're oddly shaped. We know that part of the history of Socorro included having a single-family house next to a tiendita or a commercial next to an office. And so what this allows, it legalizes the ability for developers and property owners and small business owners to legalize these sort of activities, which again, based on the standards that we'll walk you through. So just, we're talking about a mixture of housing, jobs, shopping, and services. A mixture of light commercial and light residential, seeks to preserve open space, because there is some criteria there where you can, if it's part of the development, preserve open space. Encourages architecture and landscaping that is local to the city of Socorro, and seeks to preserve historic buildings. Part of the design elements that somebody that wants to come in with a rezoning to the GMU would have to state that it is a mixture of housing, jobs, shopping, and services. For example, residences, shops, workplaces interwoven within the development. Natural features such as open space, squares, plazas, landscape streets, parking lots behind buildings, and then human scale design with buildings, streets, corridors, and other public spaces being at the pedestrian level, right? Many times when you look at suburban development, it's at the automobile scale. Light fixtures are really tall, buildings are really big. This is at the sidewalk level, essentially what you would see along Socorro Road. And then just part of the regulations, again, the area would be determined by the master zoning plan, which I'll speak about in just a second, and then ultimately city council. The setbacks would be determined by the master zoning plan and city council. And then some of the permitted uses, that's the language that's in the ordinance, says encourages mixed uses such as residential, neighborhood commercial, office, civic, and institutional uses. And then in no instances can just one type of use be allowed. So you can't have a mixed-use district with just residential, or you can't have a mixed-use district with just commercial, right? It has to be a combination of residential, commercial and offices, schools and residential. And again, as Mr. Cruz mentioned, it could be handled on a case-by-case basis. Some of the proposed uses would include single-family, multifamily, parks, churches, schools, restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, bars, food trucks, bookstores, jewelry shops, art galleries, and city offices. And then, again, as I mentioned, not allowed, which is a part of the code, no recycling businesses, no salvage yards, no car sales, no large-scale manufacturing, warehousing, or industrial uses. That's why you have the ICMUD for those types of uses, right? This is, again, for neighborhood commercial, neighborhood residential. Just some examples off the top of my head. The next slide, please. Slide. So it's just some examples, and this is illustrative, right? It's not, these are just some examples of what we could potentially see. So for example, you could have a single family house with an art gallery. Currently, you cannot do that, right? Art gallery would be in a commercial zoning district, single family home in an R1. You could have a duplex and a bookstore and a cafe. You could have a bed and breakfast, a winery within a single, and then a single family home within the lot. You could have a quadruplex and a coffee shop. You could have a single family house and a woodworking studio, right? You may have someone that does arts and crafts, woodworking, metalsmith, but can't have it next to his house because the zoning districts would not allow it. Duplex and beauty salon, triplex and farmer's market, small professional offices with a pizza place and a duplex, single family house, duplex, and restaurant. And then all can, as part of the development, is if it's part of our sort of discussions with the applicant, it could have a small park, plaza, open space, trail, agricultural land, landscaping. And then just other requirements, next slide please. So it does require a master zoning plan. I'm not gonna go through it, but it's outlined in detail as part of the ordinance. So it's not just as simple as it currently is for a R1 to a C1, right? All you need is the application. We vet it through the zoning districts. We might require a detailed site plan. But in this case, because the applicant or the property owner is creating essentially their own zoning district, we do want to see some of those details. We do want to see where the buildings are going to be located with the parking, making sure that they are meeting the goal and the spirit of the ordinance by the detailed site plan. Again, that there's open space, that there's a mix of uses, that there's parking in appropriate areas of the development. And then finally, creates another zoning district. Owners will still have to rezone to utilize the zoning district, and the application process is the same. Comes through our office, we vet it, goes through P&Z, and ultimately, City Council has the ultimate word in terms of the rezoning. Final slide. This is something that as I was preparing the presentation today, this is already in the city's comprehensive plan that was drafted in 2014. As you know, the comprehensive plan is a process that is vetted with the community and adopted by a city council. And within our own comprehensive plan, it says land use goal number 1, Socorro will strive to implement the future land use plan, including a mixed-use town center, a more compact development pattern, and mixed-use neighborhood centers in appropriate places. And then at the bottom, it says mixed-use areas that allow a combination of residential and commercial and office development in both nodes and along major thoroughfares. And with that, Mayor and Council, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mayor.
Mr. Garcia, one moment, please.
So, Mr. Calinat, thank you. I want to reiterate what Mr. Cruz said was, this is, for the record, it's on case-by-case basis.
Yes, sir.
They're not going to come in and bring, I think, example, they gave a bar, an apartment complex. It has to come through us first, just like everything else. The example that I liked you gave was the Montecillo. The
Yes,
Montecillo, if we're talking about Montecillos, or we're actually pushing ingenuity here in the city of Socorro.
Yes, sir.
Which would be great. And also, it's moving the city forward. And also, if you're building a shopping center in a residential area, you're inviting people to walk to your shopping center, not drive to the shopping center. So we're looking at eco-friendly as well. So I'm really excited about this. And with that, I'm going to make it a motion to approve. Second.
We have one more question. Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Gallinat, I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
several questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How does this come into play with the covenants of each subdivision? Covenants that were developed or recorded prior to the land being sold and developed
Yes, ma'am.
as
So it's-
homes?
Yes, ma'am.
That's
So-
fine. How about, do the neighbors still get the notices that this is coming up? And their input, is it important? Is it looked into, considered? And my third question is, when the board decided to table this, other than they did not have enough time to review it, was there other concerns?
Yes, ma'am. So let me answer the first question on the subdivision ordinances. So this is regarding zoning. Subdivision deals with subdivisions. If there is a covenant that runs with the land that is not, what's the term? You cannot take it back, then the subdivision ordinance would apply. So if the subdivision ordinance states that you cannot have commercial on a piece of land, and that's part of the covenant, then you can't have it. That's separate from zoning, right? If a land is already subdivided and there's no covenants, then just like any other piece of land, they are entitled to have certain regulations that allows them to have development, the ability to develop as according to the city's codes. Number two, yes, ma'am. So that doesn't change. Again, this is still a rezoning. Ms. Colombia Lobos, we still have to notify applicants within 200 feet. We still have to post it in the El Paso Times on Sunday, and that does not change. And then the final question, I think that there were some questions about how the applicability of the ordinance, right? What if you have, one of the examples was, what if you have a bar next to residential? That was one question that was brought up. I think there was some questions about, again, make sure that we're not creating nuisances within residential areas by allowing something that may not be compatible. But again, all those things are stated within the ordinance that says that at the end of the day, City Council still has the final approval once you've reviewed the master zoning plan, which again has, it's listed in the ordinance, but it has a lot of details that the applicant would have to give us up front so that we know exactly what they're going to develop. I would also add, if I didn't add it now, so once the master zoning plan is approved as part of the rezoning, they cannot change it. There's some minor amendments that staff could make, but if they can't say rezone it to GMU and then build something totally different that was not part of their master zoning plan. So it really ties the applicant and the property owner to what they said they were going to do, and it really protects the city in regard to the kind of development that we want to see.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz?
So not really a question, but more of a comment. You mentioned that there was a question in the meeting about this item, about bars next to residential. I agree. I agree. There's places that bars should be allowed to open up, and I feel that there's areas where they shouldn't. One, near schools, churches, and stuff like that. Let's keep those areas clear of those type of establishments. But what defines next to a residential? And in everyone's eyes here, it could mean something different. We're about to open, not us, but Wing Daddy's is about to open up off of Nuevo Hueco. And if I cross the street, I'm now in a residential area. So I think that by the establishment of this right here, it also helps protect that from happening again, or because I know there was some discussion over that type of business there, but because these rules didn't apply and they didn't exist, and I think now we can now establish something like this, and it now protects the residential areas for those types of businesses to open up
Yes,
that
sir.
close to a residential area.
Yes, sir, that's right. I think that's correct.
You have a question?
Yes.
Mr. Reyes?
So Gainar,
Yes, sir.
what's gonna happen with the existing businesses? Are they gonna have to go and do their rezoning?
So if there are existing businesses that are currently operating as a mixed-use district but don't have the GMU, they would have to come in to rezone and apply for that. Any business that's existing that this does not apply to, we'll leave alone, right? Nothing changes. But if there are existing businesses again that where they may have a mixture of uses, yes, they would need to comply. What this does is it legalizes those uses, right? Many ordinances that we pass help legalize things that are not compliant or not within our codes. And let me also point out, it's not a wrong thing, right? So even if we, like, say for example, any of the examples that I gave you, a duplex next to a bookstore within the same lot, right? With nice landscaping, with adequate parking, with good signage. But for the code not allowing it, it's not detrimental to the community, it's not detrimental to the city, it's actually probably a good thing, right? Based on the things that we're discussing. So this, all this does is creates the law that allows these property owners to come in and comply with the zoning districts.
You already made a motion.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 16, public hearing of an ordinance to amend Chapter 38 subdivisions, Article 1, General Section 38-20, dedication of land for public use by deleting this section in its entirety and adding a new Section 38-20, parkland dedication. It is 6:39. Public hearing is now open.
Mayor, we have a speaker for this item, Miriam Cruz.
Oh, she's not on the line. Does anybody else would like to speak on this item? As there are no speakers, public hearing is now closed at 6:40 p.m. Item number 17, second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 38 subdivisions. Article 1, General Section 38-20, dedication of land for public use by deleting this section in its entirety and adding a new Section 38-20, parkland dedication.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Once again, Carlos Gallinar. So this is another item that Mayor and Council asked us to work on. This deals with the way that parks are dedicated and developed within the city of Socorro. So as I mentioned earlier, again, the way that, this is the urban planner in me speaking, right? The reason that things look the way they do is not by happenstance. I mean, there are regulations that require a street to be a certain width, a sidewalk to be a certain width, and when it comes to subdivisions, it's part of our subdivision code that if a pond is required, then the developer has to put in a pond. If the setbacks of the home are 25 feet, then they're 25 feet. We can't, right, there's no wiggle room generally when it comes to these ordinances. So the way that neighborhoods are developed are based on the subdivision ordinance, and if the subdivision ordinance does not require parks, then a developer does not have to put in a park. And so the way that the City of Socorro's ordinance has been written, we'll just go to the next slide. So the way that the City of Socorro's ordinance written is when it comes to parkland dedication, this is the only paragraph within our subdivision code that speaks about parks, and it is a little bit confusing, and it is a little bit not sufficient to provide the kinds of parks and quality of life that come with new neighborhoods. And so what it says, I'm not going to read it all, but I just want to point out, it says that 2.5%, so the subdivider shall transfer to the city 2.5% of the total land to be subdivided or an equivalent dollar value which shall be used by the city for parks and recreation or other city use. And so when we talk about the 2.5%, it has been my experience in the last year or so that I've been here in dealing with developers. Well, Carlos, is it 2.5% of the total land? Is it 2.5% of the value of the infrastructure? It's not very clear. So there's a bit of ambiguity, and there's no real concrete black and white direction either for staff or for the developer. And so what the ordinance does, next slide, is it deletes this section in its entirety, and then it provides the ordinance that's in front of you. Again, I'm not going to go through it line by line. I just want to hit the sort of the key points here. So first of all, what the ordinance does is it dictates the size of the park, right? So what we are recommending is that where a residential subdivision application is filed, the amount of parkland required to be deeded to the city shall be as follows. This is all residential, and I'll talk about commercial in just a second. When it comes to residential single-family homes, between if it's 1 acre of parkland for every 100 homes. For multifamily, it would be 1 acre of parkland for every 200 dwelling units. And then there's fees that I'll talk about in just a second, but again, this part of the ordinance speaks to the size of the park that we would want to see in the developments. The next slide. Next slide. This talks about the types of parks, right? So again, our ordinance currently doesn't say what kind of parks we should have, and we know that there are different types of parks. And so some of the parks that are recommended could be the neighborhood park, and again, it's based on the size of it, at least 1 acre for every 100 homes. You could do a dual park pond. Parks and drainage, retention, and detention ponds may be placed side by side or combined to provide for larger and more efficient park and open space lands for neighborhoods. And then you could also have a linear park or a trail, right? There could be some instances within the city of Socorro where you may have an acequia that has been vacated, no longer in place, but instead of covering it, we could ask the developer to create a trail within the neighborhood or connecting other neighborhoods as part of the parkland dedication. So again, it gives developers in the city a mix of different types of parks, not just something that we may not want or something that is not, that can be considered a park. The next slide talks about the standards. So now in addition to the 1 acre or the many acres, and in addition to the type of parks, we are setting different characteristics. So for example, the parkland deeded to the city as provided in this chapter shall meet the following standards. The park shall be placed near the center of the subdivision, right? So no longer can we say, hey, it's the developer's discretion to give us the last piece of land that's unused, that they're not gonna use as a park because it's no benefit to them. And so sometimes parks are tucked away in a corner, you can't access them, they're not visible. And so this first standard says that the park should be within the center of the subdivision. Number 2, it should not require people to cross arterial roads to get to the park. It should be within residential streets. The next one says, entire boundary of the parkland shall be either a public or private street. And then the next one, when applicable, try to locate them next to schools. And then where possible, parkland shall be designed and located within a subdivision to allow for an extension or connection to a park that is already existing or that may be within the future subdivision, so that you're co-locating parks and creating a much higher parkland area than if you wouldn't be able to do this. And then the standards for deeded parks. So now we've talked about size, we've talked about location, we've talked about standards. Now within the park, The code require paving, frontage, curbing, gutter for all street frontages, so essentially infrastructure. Utilities that are connected within the park, accessible route that meets the Texas accessibility standards or for all streets that are ADA compliant, grading, automatic irrigation, and turf within the parkland, one age appropriate play structure either for kids that are ages 2 to 5 or 5 to 13 with a canopy, minimum 2 accessible shaded picnic tables or 4 benches, minimum of 2 trash cans per acre on a concrete pad, and then again, pedestrian-oriented perimeter lighting within the park so that it's lighting that is about 10, 12 feet, not lighting that is about 30, 40 feet, right, where it doesn't illuminate the areas of the park. And then the other important thing to note, Mayor and Council, is that if there's the ability to pay instead of the parkland. So the way that the ordinance is written is the city may require a cash payment in lieu of parkland dedication under the following circumstances. When an area of the park is less than 1 acre is required to be dedicated. So if there is a subdivision that comes in and it's less than 100 units, then we can request payment. And I'll tell you what that fee would be. Or less than 2 acres if there is an existing park within 1/2 mile and upon the recommendation of the city planner, and then where the city planner determines that the park needs of the subdivision would be better served by developing other parks within the city. So there may be a subdivision that comes in, but there may be a park that has not been developed or created in the adjacent subdivision. We could require that those fees go to pay for the improvements in that adjacent park. And then the fees would be on single family and 2 family units, it would be $650 per unit. On multifamily, it would be $340 per dwelling unit. And then I did talk about commercial, so anything that is not residential, that is a commercial or industrial plat, they would have to pay $1,000 per acre. That would be dedicated to the park fees, to the park, a park fund that would then be utilized by the city for maintenance, for programming, for improvements, for, again, beautifying our parks that are already existing. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We did, again, I recognize that this is a lot of information, a lot of language that the city may not be accustomed to, but it really does elevate the city standards when it comes to quality of life and providing parks and providing amenities, right? Many of the things that I think we all believe that people deserve and should have within their neighborhoods. And so I think that this really will set the foundation for much better communities, much better neighborhoods, much better park land dedication within our city.
Motion to approve?
I have one question.
Second.
Sorry.
Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Gaynor, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the cash payment to the city.
Yes, sir.
In exchange for, you said 1 acre, less than 1 acre of land, which equals how many units?
So the calculation, Mr. Cruz, is essentially if it's 100 homes or more, you don't have a choice. You have to do the park.
You have to build a park.
You don't. The developer doesn't have a choice. So it has to do the park, and it has to do the park with all the things that I outlined: playground, sidewalks, lighting. Some subdivisions are going to come in smaller, right? So if it's less than 100 units, that's where the fee kicks in, and it would be the $640. I'm sorry, the $650 per every lot that comes in.
Oh, so this is where I'm weighing options. I like everything.
Yes, sir.
I like everything else. But at the same time, I also realize that I know what a safe city looks like. And safe cities are when you can actually see the kids outside playing. Okay?
Yeah.
If I see kids out running around in the street, I know that I'm in a safe neighborhood. I'm trying to weigh out the pros and cons as to I accept one lump sum payment. How long will that last? How long will it take us to exhaust those funds or push them into the park maintenance program or whatever we call
Yes,
it,
sir.
right? And then I also look at the park's going to be there for years. The kids are going to be there for years. They're going to grow up. They'll have kids. Whatever. I'm just thinking
Yeah, no, that's right.
out loud, right? And I'm trying to understand: is it worth that one lump sum payment in exchange for no park being built on acreage smaller than that? I'm trying to visualize it.
Yes, sir. So let me say a couple of things. One, I think it's a great point that you're making, right? And you always, at least, I think it's important for cities to have parks. I mean, I think that's been stated, right? That is without question. But what might happen, Mr. Cruz, so essentially what we're saying is that the 1 acre is equivalent to 100 homes, right? So let's just say, for example, if we don't have the fee and we require parks everywhere, and you have a subdivision that comes in with 50 units, that now requires a park that is half an acre and may not be half an acre, then you start to become, these parks become smaller, and then they become more maintenance for city staff, right? So it's, generally speaking, when you have a larger park, it's easier to maintain. You have however many staff out there doing what they need to do. When you have many smaller parks, it becomes a maintenance issue in which now you're having to drive out there and maintain it. And so it's a question of, I think you're if the point the response that I would have for you is that it's a question of the size of the parks that start to become smaller. And then I really generally do believe that it is a maintenance issue for the city. We would love to have more parks, right? And Mr. Rodarte will tell you, and we've had this conversation, parks are great, but they also need maintenance. And so I think that this is a really good medium in which, you know, for example, you might have a subdivision that comes over 100 units, 140, 150. Now it's a 1.4 or a 1.5 acre park. Much larger, much nicer. Right now, you're able to fit all the things that we're talking about.
Like I personally don't live in one of the new subdivisions, but I can easily count 100 homes.
Yeah.
On my street and the next, and the nearest park is Bulldog Park. It's a mile and a half away.
That's right.
I'm okay with it, but I get what you're saying now, and that's what I was trying to visualize, and I think you answered my question as far as the maintenance and the cost of, and the distribution.
Yeah.
Of the small parks throughout the entire city.
Or you can suspend the rules. Is there a motion?
We can make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. Go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, we have to
Ruben
vote.
Reyes?
Yes.
Cesar Nevares?
Yes.
Alejandro
I'm sorry, I had a question. Are we voting already?
No.
No, we're voting to suspend the rules.
Oh,
on the
okay. I'm sorry,
constituent.
yes.
Alejandro
you.
Garcia?
Aye.
Rudy Cruz?
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos?
Yes.
Excuse me, my name is Estrella Alvarado, and I belong to the community of Socorro. We're a very old neighborhood. Now, for a park, are you all talking about for the newer complexes that are coming up, or the older neighborhoods don't get access to having a park?
Would you like to answer that, Mr. Gainat, for her, please?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. So the question to answer, ma'am, is yes, this would be applicable to just new subdivisions that are coming in. Well, a couple of things. One, and maybe you all could help me out, but let me take a stab at it. So essentially, ma'am, when new subdivisions, there's certain standards that, you know, they have to put in upon in parks and streets. On existing older areas of Socorro that don't have parks, I think that that is a separate tool that the city could utilize. I mean, if the city council wanted to go out and look for land, go out and pay for the parks that comes out of the city's resources currently, what we are proposing are new parks for developers when they want to come into the city of Socorro.
In my neighborhood, there's a lot of new people that have been moving in, younger couples with
You want to speak to the microphone?
little ones. And I see a lot of, now that I'm retired from working, I see a lot of small children out in the street on their bicycles, and people that are letting their dogs, you know, off the leash and running on the street, and all these children, you know, they're out in the street, and they don't have anywhere to play but on the streets. And that's what concerns me, because a lot of new people are moving into our neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe the problem situation with that is that now we're making the standards, so we're making it to where if we would have had these same standards 40, 50 years ago, then that's the way it would have been. Do you know what I mean? These standards are gonna be brand new to the city, because they've never been in the city. So now we're trying to make sure that everybody with 100 homes has a park. But those standards are coming in now. 50, 60 years ago, 20 years ago, they didn't have these standards. Do you know what I mean? So now we're trying to get these standards going, and then it's 2023, and we're barely getting these standards in. That's where Socorro's a little behind everything, but we're trying to catch up.
Well, I think that as voters, or as the people of, citizens of this city or town, I think everybody has a right to having the same rights as the newer subdivisions.
Yes, ma'am, and that, you're
And our
absolutely right.
children that are
But the
growing
thing-
up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this much, I live in an area where there's one park and there's like 3,000 homes. And I understand that because I have to walk almost 2 miles to make sure that my daughter gets zip light. But even 14 years ago, we didn't have these standards. And I'll be very honest with you, we're barely gonna have these standards now. So, I understand fully the way you're coming, but it's better to do it now. And now our future looks brighter here, and hopefully people will, we just can't go back. And if we had the budget, trust me, I would be the first one to build a park in every 100 yards, 100 homes. If I could, I would, and I bet this council would as well.
Ms. Rodarte would like to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to let you know that, so these new developments, it's not something that the city's spending money on. The developers are the ones that are developing these new parks. So the taxpayers aren't paying for these newer parks, right? It's the developer that's coming in, they want to develop, so that we're requiring them to build a park. I think that if, we've been neglected for so many years, and there's so many needs. There's we need sidewalks, we need driveways, we need drainage, right? Because when it rains, we have poor, bad conditions, and I think that our budget is very limited. But now, when there's a new subdivision that's abutting these older communities, we require them to have a park so the older community can actually share or visit that park that's kind of close by. But I do feel that if we had the funds, I think council would go and put a park. Unfortunately, there's just so much need within the community that we need to prioritize. What do we do first, the sidewalk, or do we build a park? Right, we need sidewalks for our students to be able to walk to school, or.
I worked for my community in the 80s.
Yes.
And I accomplished a lot. And I'm always aware of what's going on. That's why I was asking.
Yes.
And we're getting left behind again from a lot of benefits that I hear are coming up. And to me, everybody has a right to better themselves and better their children that are growing up. And it just doesn't seem fair to me.
Agreed.
That's my opinion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we had a motion made by Mr. Garcia. Do we have a second?
I still have my question.
Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Gallinat, my concern with all this, and because we did it in the past, is I don't know if it's cheaper to donate or to have the developer do, I don't know if it's less expensive for the developer to set aside the 1 acre for the 100 homes, or to pay the equivalent. Because they could come back and request, and if this council allows it again, to reduce the number of square footage per lot in order to make up that difference and not put the park and just pay their fee. That is my concern, and I want council to hear me loud and clear, that if something like this comes back up, that we don't allow these lots to be less than the 6,000 that we have approved in the past. I think it was a couple of years ago that we said no smaller than 6,000. And that's my concern with this item, because they can make up the difference by coming back and requesting that ahead of time, even before they decide whether they're going to set aside for the park or pay for it.
Was that a question, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
So I think what I would offer, Ms. Colombia Lobos, is that, you know, the first point you made is if it's cheaper, if they just give the fee, whether the park, I would say that it's probably costlier for the developer to build a park with the park benches, with the land, deeding over the land of 1 acre, right? Those are lots that they are no longer able to develop into residential lots and sell to home builders. The turf, I mean, I don't have a cost estimate in front of me, but I would imagine that, so for example, if you do the math, 100 times 650, I believe it's $65,000. I could probably guess that a park with the quality that we're asking for would be more than $65,000. In terms of the lot size, I think that is still a separate issue that would still be handled through your zoning ordinance. And so if a developer wanted, so right now all we have is R1s and R2s, and to your point, that's not changing with this, and the lot size dimensions are not changing with this. And so separate from this, if a developer or somebody wanted to come in and request smaller lot sizes, they would still be able to do that through a variance in the subdivision code, and you would still have the discretion to allow it or not allow it.
And so that's why I want council to remember this before we approve any future lots being reduced, because they can make up the difference by taking from here and there. And if it's, you know, if it's under 200 homes, all they have to develop, all they have to dedicate is 1 acre for 150. And let's supposedly we just reduced it to 500 square feet homes, and they've developed another, I don't know, 7 homes from there to make up for you know, having to pay this fee. I just want you guys to see my point of view and remember this when they come back out, because they will.
But,
Thank you.
sorry.
Mr. Garcia?
But 150 homes would be 1.5 acres, wouldn't it?
Yes, correct.
And 200 homes would be 2 acres.
2 acres, correct.
And I understand, it could be 145, you know? They'll find a way, they'll find the loophole. That's my point.
Mr. Reyes, you had a question?
I just had a comment, but Ms. Rodarte kind of
She
explained, yeah, a lot of the times I've gotten complaints about how come all the new houses are getting sidewalks and lights and parks, and it's not that the city's doing it for them, it's they come in a package and they put it in, and that was just the comment.
Yes, sir.
Right.
But, let me finish it. But that doesn't mean that the constituents can come and ask for a park, because we'll look into it. We'll figure out, let's say you want a park, and if there's money or if we can do something, we'll look into it, ma'am. We're not saying, okay, you're on the old Socorro, you don't get anything. Thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colombia Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Moving on to Grants Department, item number 18. Discussion and action to approve Resolution 720 authorizing the City of Socorro to submit an application to establish a foreign trade zone under the alternative site framework as defined by 15 CFR 400.2 C. Do we have a motion?
Motion to discuss?
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Alejandra Valadez, City Development Director. We're here requesting your approval to authorize a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application to the Foreign Trade Zone Board for the establishment of a foreign trade zone in Socorro, and for the City of Socorro to become a foreign trade zone grantee. We do have Jose Quiñones, who is our Economic Recovery Coordinator, who has been working on this application, and he's available if you have any questions.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jose Quiñones with Grant Special Projects. We're very excited about this application. It's going to do really push the time chain on Socorro as far as its industrial development. And what we're doing here is taking the first step in identifying the service area for this foreign trade zone. That doesn't mean that it's going to go anywhere. Obviously, we just placed the whole overlay of the foreign trade zone over the city so that we have the most opportunity to decide when a project comes to us. We will bring it to council, and at that time, you can decide if it's a good project or not. Okay? We still have this FTZ application process still months away. Once we submit it to the Foreign Trade Zones Board in Washington, it's going to be about 4 to 6 months before we get this process finalized. And once we get the board order from the board, then we're officially a foreign trade zone grantee. We can now start working with industry to create opportunities in the Socorro area. Any questions?
Mr. Garcia?
So where would we have this foreign trade zone? Where would we house this?
Where would we house it? Typically, you want to house it in an industrial site. So it could be a small area, like as small as 1 acre, to an industrial park like the Socorro Logistics Center that's in development right now. And so if you look to our west, you'll see in the city of El Paso, there's a lot of industrial property north of I-10 and south of I-10, such as the PSB board. Those are typical foreign trade zone sites. Obviously, when we bring that to you, you'll have the opportunity as a council to discuss this project, whether it's a good one or not. And I think as staff, we would also do our due diligence in determining if it's a project that makes sense for the community of Socorro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Any more questions?
You have a question? No? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have
Second.
to rescind the. Ms. Villalobos?
I just said second.
Oh,
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
it was
Aye.
motion to
Rudy Cruz?
discuss.
No, this is a motion to approve.
Who said motion to approve?
We had a motion to approve for discussion that Mr. Garcia
Yes.
made, and this is a new motion to approve.
New motion? Okay.
And then
Oh,
seconded
and
by
then
Ms.
second.
Colom
Okay.
Villalobos.
Got it.
Rudy Cruz
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 19, discussion and action to submit a grant application to the fiscal year 2022 West Texas HIDTA program and accept the grant award in the amount of $61,533 for the Socorro Police Department. There is no match requirement for this grant.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are required to request your approval for the submission of this HIDA application as well as the acceptance of the award totaling $61,533. The Socorro Police Department has participated in the West Texas HIDA program in FY 17, 18, FY 19, and FY 2021. And if approved today, we will continue our participation in the HIDA program through FY 2022. There is no match for this grant.
Excellent. Thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 20, discussion and action to approve the proposed updates to the spending framework for the City of Socorro's allocation under the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, CLFRF, approved in the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are requesting your approval on the proposed updates to the ARPA spending framework. As you recall, we presented an ARPA spending framework in October 28th, 2021, and we have been bringing you updates on that ARPA spending framework almost every council meeting, and we'll continue to do so. You see a bit more detail in the backup this time, and you will continue to see more detail as these projects are developed through each department, and we continue to spend down those funds as well.
Ruben Reyes.
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to Planning and Zoning Department, item number 21, discussion and action to approve Resolution 721, approving a replat for Socorro Mission Subdivision Unit 1, replat C, located on 601 Zebu Road, and being all of Lot 10, Block 10, Socorro Mission Subdivision Unit 1, replat C, located at 601 Zebu Road, and being all of Lot 10, Block 10, Socorro Mission Subdivision Unit 1, Socorro, Texas, and approving a variance to allow a 5-foot rear yard setback on Lot 1, and imposing a condition that the side yard setback nearest the existing home, Lot 2, be at 10 inches.
Mayor and Council, once again, Carlos Gallinar. I feel like I've maxed my work quota, so I'm going to try not to spend too much time on this. The next slide shows the details. So again, this is a single-family residential home. It is 22,610 square feet. The request that's in front of you is a replat, which means that there is already an existing subdivision. And so essentially what the applicant is looking to do is to do a lot split through the replat. There's two items. They are asking for a variance on the site setback because there's already an existing home. And they're trying to keep within the 10,000 square foot lot minimum size for the R1. And then they condition that on the new lot, that the site setback that's closest to the home be 10 feet instead of 5 feet. Staff and P&Z are both recommending approval. Here's the location map. Next slide shows the location map, so it's on the corner of Cebu and Barzon. Here's the zoning map, which is R1, single family residential. Here's the property picture, so it has essentially a single family home on one side, and then a completely, about half of the other side, which is about 11,000 square feet, is completely vacant. So here's the aerial, and the yellow dashed line shows where it's going to be subdivided, and it shows that where that line would be is the site setback. I'm sorry, that line is the rear yard setback, and so they are asking for a variance. Here's the replat. Next slide. It shows the two residential lots of equal size. And then here's the rear yard setback, currently at 5 feet. It should be 25 feet, but they're asking for the variance. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mayor?
Ms. Villalobos?
So, I'm sorry, can we go back to the aerial picture? So the variance is to allow the back part, the yellow part, the dotted, the space bars, to allow those to be, how much?
5 feet, ma'am.
5 feet?
Yes,
Why not the 10?
Well, Ms. Colombia, it's actually it should be 25 feet. Because
Okay.
because the address, so here, the address of the house is actually on Cebu. But I think your point is well taken. If the address of the house was Barzon, it would be the side setback, right? And it would be at 5
Right.
feet and there would be no issues. But
Right.
because it's technically the backyard, they need the variance. Otherwise, the other lot becomes smaller than the 10,000 square feet, and I think they want to divide it equally so that they're able to have the two parcels of equal size.
So are you telling me we don't have an ordinance saying that it has to be 10,000 feet? They just want it to be evenly?
No, we do have
And-
an ordinance, ma'am.
We
The
do,
R- the
that it has
R1
to be 10,000. So we either give them we either allow them to reduce it
Exactly.
or allow the line to be where it's at right now.
That's exactly right. Yes, ma'am.
So it's, okay, so either way, it's a variance,
That's
one way or another.
1,000% correct, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Guinard, what's the P&Z's recommendation?
They voted to approve, sir.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 22, discussion and action to approve Resolution 722, approving a final plat for East Wind Industrial Subdivision, being Robert E. Nix, survey number 302, 303, and 304, Socorro, Texas.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mayor and Council, Carlos Gainar once again. So this is an item that has been in front of you. This is the East Wind Industrial Subdivision final plat. You have seen the preliminary plat last month, and so the developer is now coming in with the final plat. You're familiar with the zoning district, you're familiar with the size of the parcel, the location. One of the items that I did want to point out is that when a developer is proposing or asking for the city council to approve a final plat and they want to record it at the county and the improvements have not been completed, so in this case, the one improvement that will belong to the city of Socorro is the street, and I'll show you in just a second, the street that goes in the middle. So when those improvements have not been completed, the code does allow the developer to put a security bond for the cost of the infrastructure, and the applicant, Mr. Enrique Escobar, has submitted, so as noted on the slide, the developer has provided a letter of credit from Texas Bank as security in order to record the plat. I'll walk you through the plat in just a second, but I wanted to point out that detail, which might be unfamiliar to you because it might be one of the first times that we're actually getting this request. Staff and P&Z are recommending approval. And then the next slide shows the verbiage within the code. Next slide, please. So again, section 38-9.9, final plat recordation, right? The plat, he's now able to take it to the county. Typically, they would have to wait till everything's improved and we've signed off and they go to the county. But when it's not been finalized, the language says submittal of the record plat where improvements have not been installed. And then I just highlighted the language that says together with required security to the planning and zoning department. And we do have a bona fide letter saying that if the developer does not complete the improvements, the city could go in there with his line of credit to complete the improvements. The location map is, as again, you all are familiar with it. Next slide, please. Here's the zoning map. Here's the property pictures. Here's the aerial image. And then the final plat, which has not changed from the preliminary plat. It might be difficult to see, but that line that's coming down the middle is a public street. And the ponds are private, so the only thing that would be dedicated to the city when we do accept it would be the street, and that is what the security bond would pay for. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mayor,
Ms. Villalobos?
so why are the ponds private?
I don't know, the developer's here, if they want, sorry, the representative for the developer is here.
Okay.
Ponds private. Why are the ponds private?
Good evening, Council. Jorge Azcárate with CA Group for the record. The reason for the ponds being private is that they're just really intent to hold the runoff for the commercial development. So I think it puts an unburden to the city of Socorro to maintain ponds that are solely for the benefit of one end user, which is the industrial or the commercial property that are being proposed in this thing. That is the reason why it is being maintained as a private. Different from a single-family residential. In a single-family, you have multiple public streets. Runoff is actually conveyed from the lots into the street, conveyed into collected concentration points, inlets, and then conveyed to storm sewers, and then eventually to a pond, and then has a public benefit for the entire community. This one is really just for the end users, the two lots, that's it. So that is the reason.
Mr. Gallina, I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am, of course.
And so they still have rules and regulations to follow, even if it's a private pond. In other words, the city can go in there and say, hey, this is not proper, you have to da-da-da-da-da.
Yes, ma'am. There are still construction and design standards that we still have to review when they come in with the construction drawings.
And for future? once developed and they're not working properly or operated properly?
That would be at that point, it's private property. We wouldn't, I think that would be part of the developers or the tenants or whoever owns the land to maintain, ma'am. It would not be the responsibility of the cities.
So I guess my question is, if it's affecting the city, their ponds are affecting the city, can the city get involved?
I think the answer is possibly, if we could prove that whatever is affecting the city can be proven that it's this development and it's this pond.
That's not a good answer. Mr. Martinez? You're on mute, Mr. Martinez.
Sorry, it took me a minute there. Ms. Colon-Villalobos, I can tell you that, just because it's private doesn't mean other ordinances do not apply to it. It's private. The owner is responsible for maintaining it. If there is some environmental effect, if it becomes a nuisance to nearby properties, there are still other ordinances the city can enforce.
Thank you, sir.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to city manager, item number 23, discussion and action to approve Camacho Hernandez work order number 3 and authorize city manager or her designee to execute work order.
Motion to approve. Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The next two items are related to the 3 engineer firms that were selected for general engineering services. This item consists of work authorization number 3. The engineer will perform engineering services generally described as preliminary engineering services for development of a design, schematic, environmental document studies in support of the schematic work, public involvement, permit procurement, mitigation, and remediation. And this is for our Sparks Arroyo project. The maximum amount payable under this work authorization is $1,819,842.19 being paid through the Texas Water Development Board.
No, Mr. Reyes?
For for this, it's gonna be the Sparks Arroyo, so they can do the concrete lining?
Correct, so it's our Sparks Arroyo starting from I-10 to finish the project all the way to the Onion Field.
Ruben Reyes.
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 24, discussion and action to approve Hewitt Zollers, Inc., work order 1 and 2, and authorize city manager or her designee to execute work order.
Motion to approve. Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We do have the approval of work authorization number 1 that consists of engineer will perform program management and engineering services generally described as in accordance with the project description. And this work order is payable under the work authorization up to $293,896. Work authorization number 2 is the work authorization is to provide construction management, inspection, and material testing services for the Passmore Road Shared Use Path project. And this is not to exceed $242,745. This cost is covered by TxDOT and local funds.
No questions.
Ruben Reyes.
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 25, discussion and action and presentation to approve Conterra Networks for the City of Socorro Network and authorize city manager or her designee to execute work order.
Motion to approve. Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Esteban Gonzalez, IT Director. I have the gentlemen from Conterra that are going to show you a presentation of what they're wanting to offer the city for our new fiber network. And this goes along with the broadcast and network infrastructure program that we're trying to get through with ARPA funding.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors, City Manager, Ms. Rodarte. citizens and friends of the city of Socorro. It's my privilege to be here tonight in this beautiful place to introduce you to Conterra Networks, the company that I represent. At Conterra, our passion is to enable organizations to be more productive by providing them with state-of-the-art connectivity. Next slide, please. We provide fiber optics and voice and data services to major organizations, but we also provide connectivity to small businesses. And we are very excited about the opportunity to serve the city of Socorro because we mainly are focused in providing services for Tier 2 cities and underserved communities. Next slide, please. We've been in business for almost 17 years. We provide services for many companies around the U.S. We have 13,000 route miles of our own fiber. We provide services for schools, independent school district cities. Next slide, please. We have currently our own center for operations that is open 24/7. We have mainly fiber optics, but we also provide a microwave routes in many cities in the U.S. And we give our clients carrier class services. From the smallest to the largest customers, they receive from us the best quality that there is in telecommunications. And as you may be very aware, these days internet and communications is productivity, means productivity for organizations, cities, citizens. Next slide, please. This is our network here in the area, in El Paso, Las Cruces, and Socorro. We provide services for the city of Socorro, for the city of El Paso, for the independent school district as well. We connect their 100 schools with our own fiber. We connect also the hospitals of Sierra Providence, for example, the 911 operator here in El Paso, and also we have the Socorro Independent School District connected with our fiber. Next slide, please. These are some of the clients that we have around here, El Paso, Las Cruces. We have Hangards, the New Mexico State University, Gadsden Independent School District, El Paso Water. We have University Medical Center, Jack in the Box. And we connect also Verizon and T-Mobile. All these organizations that you see here, they have something in common. They cannot be down. They need connectivity, and we understand that for these organizations, for example, 911, not having internet or voice means that somebody may be in real trouble and may lose their lives. So we understand how critical is connectivity for these organizations. Next slide. And we are very excited about the opportunity to serve you, to connect all your sites here. We are going to connect with state-of-the-art fiber optics. We are going to install it and maintain it for you. We are going to connect you at one gig of speed, bandwidth. And we are going to provide you also with internet connectivity and a private network. So this topology was designed by Pablo here. He's our designer and engineer, chief engineer here in town. And he is providing you with the gig. We like to say always, give them the gig, right? A gig is it's a lot of bandwidth that is going to enable the city of Socorro to provide voice data to all your locations It's going to enable also some parks for you to provide, if you wish, Wi-Fi internet to the parks. You're going to have the ability to have many, many cameras if you want, because really 1 gig of fiber is going to be more than enough for you to handle any type of need that you may have for the next 3 years at least, right? Which is going to be the term of the contract. Next slide. And well, I wanted to showcast how you're going to be supported by us. We are a very small organization, although we have a lot of fiber and a lot of customers. We are only 350 employees in the United States, and that makes us very close to our clients. For us, every single client is important, and for you to have support is also very important. So it's not going to be just support from sales. My name is there, and also my boss, Kirk Jefferson, and Adrian Garcia. Adrian Garcia is from El Paso, although he lives in North Carolina and Charlotte. And he's also supporting us, and he's very, very, very excited about this opportunity. But also we have, and you will have the names and the phones for everybody in the organization, service delivery, billing, and also even our COO and our CEO, Craig. So you will have the opportunity to talk to somebody in our organization always, at all times, right? Because we understand that support is very important for you. And, next slide, please. Since we belong to Region 19, actually we provide services to them. You can acquire services through this competitive contract by Allied States Region 19. So with that, next, if you have any questions with Pablo here.
Mr. Garcia?
Mr. Duarte, we went for an RFQ on this?
Correct, sir. So they're part of the Region 19 co-op, meaning they've already met the procurement process. So the state of Texas allows us to use co-ops for the procurement process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reyes?
Esteban looks so excited about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Okay,
excited
so-
for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
The question is for Ms. Duarte. We're paying with DARPA funds.
Yeah.
The first year.
The first year.
So,
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
so we currently do pay a different service provider for network. However, during the monsoon season, we had a couple of hardware issues that we were down for about 3 to 4 weeks, which was really unacceptable, especially for our PD. That's what prompted IT to go out and look for this service. They are guaranteeing that in 4 hours?
4 hours mean time to repair and 99.995 uptime guarantee, and we put it in writing.
That they're able to, put us back working in 4 hours.
And then after that, it's not gonna be, it's gonna affect the budget. We're not gonna.
The general fund, but it's so for this, because we're switching and ARPA funds cover broadband, our first annual we would be able to use ARPA funds. The following year, we would be using our same category, which we currently already have. I think it's about $10,000 to $15,000 difference of what we currently do pay right now.
Which is about $2,000 a month.
Correct.
It's a $2,000 a month difference.
That you would be paying. However, because this fiscal year, it would be through ARPA funds. Next fiscal year, you would see it in our budget workshop.
Mr. Cruz?
Does Conterra see the need or feel the need for incremental increases throughout the duration of our contract for any reason, inflation, or anything like that, just so that we can prepare ourselves with our budgets?
Yes, sir. We actually took that into account when designing the network. So you actually have room to grow with the network that we're giving you guys. So at your main and DR sites, you can grow all the way up to 10 gigs of throughput on each one of the entries. We're giving you 2 entrances at each building so that if one site fails, the other site picks up. So you're never going to be down. This is the exact same setup basically that we gave El Paso 911, and we're giving it to you guys. So you're. Oh. We're very competitive, as you'll see on the proposal that we gave you guys. If you guys want to increase your bandwidth later on, we will be happy to do so, and it would be a nominal fee to do so.
But we're not going to increase the monthly rent for the duration of the contract, which is going to be 3 years. And after that, we will probably renegotiate, but in our industry, that means that you're going to save money because probably you're going to still be more than able to use the same network and without paying more. You're going to pay less after 3 years, right?
Well, I guess what I'm proposing, we've all been to the shoe store, right? And sometimes the last pair of shoes that we really, really want, there's only one in the box that the lady brings out to you. The other one is on the shelf. And what I'm proposing, and not officially or formally, but we'd like to be the tester for a city as such, being the city that we are, for expanding the bandwidth. What it's going to enable that to do for our students, and provide them with the capabilities for online learning and whatnot here within the city and our public parks. I know that we have one public park that's already equipped with internet, but we'd like to see something expand.
Well, this is the infrastructure that I was trying to build. If you put up the slide where it shows all the locations, I'm adding 3 extra parks. So part of the deal was to add 3 extra parks so that we could add the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi, plus this actual growth. They don't have the map up, but we're adding 3 miles of fiber to the city. Those lines actually coincide with our future projects, which is like the trail systems for that. So I took into consideration not only what we need now, but what we're looking at for the future. So this is the basic backbone infrastructure that the city needs for cameras, security, free Wi-Fi, trail systems, things like that. And then that's going to add on, obviously, after 3 years, if we need to grow, add more parks, we can do that too. And the way their infrastructure is built out, we'll have nobs where it's easily accessible to each park throughout the city.
So you can buy those shoes online?
Yeah. Motion to approve?
We have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 26, discussion and action to approve the city of Socorro to spend $20,000 for 4 community cleanups, including the tire amnesty in fiscal year 2022 and 2023.
Motion to approve. Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're asking for $20,000 so we can collaborate with the Lower Valley Water District to have 4 community cleanups throughout our fiscal year, which means in every quarter, we would have a community cleanup. Our last one we did was in June of 2022. So what we're asking is, it takes about $8,000 to do a community cleanup. So with us also contributing, it would allow us to do a total of 4 throughout the year.
Question.
Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Olarte, I love these community cleanups, and I constantly get asked when are we going to have some more and when are we going to have some more. But I've never really seen the effect of it. Can you tell us, they run for a day, sometimes they run for a few days in a week. I think I've seen them like that from different entities. Are they taking advantage of it, the citizens of Socorro?
Oh, yes. So what we do is that we send out code enforcement to give notice of violations. Lower Valley Water District puts the containers about a week and a half to 2 weeks prior, so they can start cleaning up, and then they're allowed to put it in the cities right away. Then we schedule 2 weeks out a pickup on a Saturday, and believe me, there's tons of trash. And then after that Saturday, during the week, Lower Valley Water District just goes back and just makes sure that there's no trash left behind.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ruben Reyes.
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to mayor and council, item number 27, discussion and action to direct staff to develop a program to include budget and volunteers to create a street mural on Rio Vista Road.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a comment. I'm sorry.
Would you like to introduce?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is my item. This is something that we've been looking forward to. As Socorro Sundays have started, we want to have a lot of volunteers for this. We'll put the paint, I'm guessing, what we're gonna do. And the mural we're talking about it'll be Socorro, Texas, on the Rio Vista Street, so you can see it from the sky. So that's something that I think will bring some community pride and the community involvement for all this, and then we can tell people where we are from the sky. Appreciate it.
Do we have a second?
Second?
It was Reyes.
Okay.
Ruben Reyes is absent. Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a comment.
Ms. Villalobos?
Ms. Rodarte, I can't see you right now, but I wanted to ask you, if we do get these volunteers or payees, can we move forward also with the other art project that we have had for a number of years? Can we incorporate it, or can you look into incorporating it? And just for council to know, we do have a project that was approved to put or to paint the history of Socorro in our building that you're in right now in the lobby. It has not started, or we're not even near it, because in the past we tried to get a group of artists, but it just never planned out. So if we could utilize them to finish that project as well, it would be, beneficial. Thank you.
Did you ask a question?
Yeah, if we could.
No, it was a comment, ma'am.
Oh, it was a comment?
Yes, uh-huh.
Alejandro.
Or actually, it was a question. Can we? I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, so our current artists are actually working on the mural of the foyer.
Oh, okay.
Of Chambers. They're actually sketching it out so they can come and paint it over here, and that's something that they've been working on, but it's a huge project, so it is gonna take, a couple of months probably to complete, but that's already started, and they actually work off of the Rio Vista in the art room. You're more than
Awesome.
welcome
Thank
to
you.
stop by any day to ask, to ask them to see how it's coming along.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to go into executive?
Motion to enter executive.
Second.
Mayor, may I?
Mr. Martinez?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, I don't have anything in executive. The one item on it, I would ask the council postpone it to the next meeting.
Motion to postpone?
Wait, hold on. Wait, hang on. Hey, Jim, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Jim, for city council meetings, items for executive, do they have to be posted before we discuss? Or can we move into executive at any time in any meeting for the discussion of any item that does not need to be publicized?
Any item on the agenda can be moved into executive session as long as there's an exception to the Open Meetings Act that qualifies for it. The most common one, the most common two of them are to consult with your attorneys and to discuss a personnel matter.
Do I have to place an item on the agenda to consult with the attorneys for any other reason? Does it have to be an agenda item?
I mean, it depends on what you're if you're gonna consult with them about a specific subject, yes.
What do you say?
He said something.
If you're going to consult for a specific item, yes.
So in order to move to executive, you would have to place the item and then,
Move it into executive.
and you have to cite what reason you're going into executive session. because,
Bring up an item in executive, okay?
no, just because you need to give the public notice that you will be discussing that behind closed doors with your legal counsel.
Well, let me offer one thing. One, I think we're getting farther afield from anything that's posted on the agenda. I'm happy to discuss this privately, or I can post a separate matter to address it. But any item that is on the agenda, even if it's not designated for discussion in executive session, can be moved into executive session if an exception applies.
Mr. Olarte?
Jim, before, I know that you requested to postpone this item, however, we've been getting multiple emails from Texas Gas wanting a response from us.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Council already suspended the rates. The suspension is in effect until November 28th. We're waiting on the city of El Paso for it to act first.
So when was it postponed till November 28th? Do you recall?
It wasn't postponed. Council suspended the effective date of the rate increase
Do you know when that took place?
sometime in July, I believe, to November 28th.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, do we have a motion to delete items number 28, 29, and 30?
Motion to delete.
Motion to delete items 28, 29, and 30.
Who seconded? Oh, we already had a motion and second.
Oh, okay.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia is absent, Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to postpone item 31?
Motion to postpone item 31.
Second.
Second.
I would suggest to the next meeting.
To the next meeting.
To the next meeting.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia is absent, Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn. Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Meeting adjourns at 7:48 PM. Thank you. Good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night.